The school district, I went to a public school in Pennsylvania near Philly, and at one point it was estimated to be the third best public school system in the US. I was all proud about it, but then a friend of mine who was like a couple of districts down was like, "You had one of those flags like out in front that said quality school district?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Every school in America got one of those flags." And but there was a whole lot of press about it, so I thought maybe there was something to it. And about 5 years after I graduated from high school, the fellow who had been the principal at my junior high school published a memoir about his professional experience, maybe 15, 20 years in the school district. And talking about, you know, like all the pressures of trying to get it up to like to be a really good public school district, and everything that came down like that. You know, under pressure, things crack. And inside of those cracks in the school district was pettiness. Reading his memoir, every now and then I hear something about a teacher that I knew about, or something that sounded kind of familiar, but every now and then I found myself. One of the things that he had mentioned was how this was such a great public school system, but he mentioned a math teacher who was fired for a single infraction on the behavior that they were expecting for people. Now, this was my math teacher. This was Mrs. Fleming. Everybody loved Mrs. Fleming. She was young and blonde, and there were never any young blonde math teachers in this district. You had to be at least, I don't know, very old and possibly mythological with snakes for hair. But Mrs. Fleming could get along with people. She would work math into everything. She'd be like, there was math in dancing, so we would dance. There was math in cooking, so we would cook. And this one day, I remember she was asking for a cake recipe. And my mom was a cake baker. She used to do some cake decorating classes and things like that. But one of the cakes that she would make often enough just to have around the house was her sherry wine cake. Now, it was a basic yellow cake mix with some nutmeg in it and maybe something else. Oh, sherry. And when I, showed the teacher this recipe, it was on. We were going to make sherry wine cake in school, in my elementary school, just where she taught it. I loved this cake. It was, it was baked in a bundt pans. There was lots of crust. This was after, you got over your little kid fear of crust. This is like when you realize, this is just like the stuff on the inside, but it's toastier. Okay, so I'm going to, a little bit more caramely. And, but with the bundt pan, there's so much of that crusty goodness in there, and sweetness, and, sprinkle some powdered sugar over it. And some of your first tastes of something called alcohol. So the day came, and she pulled out all the ingredients onto her desk. We were talking about the units of measure and stuff like that. And my mom said, you can really just add a little extra water if you don't want to put the sherry in it, because we're making, this cake in school. And Mrs. Fleming mentioned as much, but she's like, but we're not going to skimp on this, folks. And she pulls a drawer open, she pulls out a jar out of her desk with a little cellophane on top of it, and swimming in there was a little sherry wine. And she's like, okay, we need such and such an amount in it. And she put the prescribed amount into the bowl, and she still had some left in that jar. And she was looking at it, and she was either going to put it back in her desk, drink it, or throw it into the cake mix. And she threw it into the cake mix. She figured, she's like, there's alcohol in here, it's going to evaporate anyway. So mix, 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 mix. ran it down to the school kitchen. The school kitchen it baked. You know, we did other math things, and then before we had our recess, we had hot, fresh cherry wine cake. There may have been some of us who ate more of that cake than others, and among them was a young man who I think was from a background where they were a little fearful, you might say, of consuming alcohol. And I think I ate a whole lot of that cake because I loved that cake. And I think this kid ate a couple pieces of that cake and got a little bit more comfortable than what an elementary school kid is looking to get before recess. And having eaten something and felt a little bit dizzy, he went down to the nurse's office. And the next day, you know, we were like, I was wondering, is there any more of this cake left? Well, no, there wasn't. And Mrs. Fleming wasn't there. And I was like, okay, well, whatever, you know, one more day till the weekend, and on we go. As it turns out, Mrs. Fleming didn't return for the rest of that school year. And that was my 6th grade year in the elementary school. Then we went on to junior high, at which point Mrs. Fleming was forgotten until maybe 10 years later, and I read this principal's memoir. And I thought, holy shit, this cake that I love got Mrs. Fleming fired. They canned her for bringing this alcohol into the school and because kids consumed it. In the cake, as it was evaporating. It was delicious, but it sucked. Cheers.
Cheers.